panel. So first I'm going to talk about the merch. We extended the deadline for our crew neck sweatshirts. Liv is going to put that link in the chat. So get one if you are interested. I think they'll be really cute. They're embroidered. First CMD merch in a couple years, I've heard. Um, and then we also still have stickers left. We have 12 of them. It's actually this sticker. We have 12 of them, so if you're interested, just send me a text or anyone on eBoard, and then we'll find a way to get that to you. We have a couple exciting events coming up. The 27th, which is next Thursday, my motor speech professor, her name's Grace, she's going to be holding an oral motor exam workshop. So she's going to teach us how to do that, and I think it'll be really fun and interactive. That will be on Thursday at 7. And then the day after that is Friday, the 28th, and we're doing the Panera fundraiser like we did last year. I think it's 20% of it goes to us, and you can go anywhere from 4 to 8, right? And you just have to tell them that it's for URISSLHA, and a percentage of what you buy will go to us. And you have to go to the one in Wakefield. Did I miss anything? eBoard, anything else to add? No? Okay. Awesome. So we are going to get started. There's a couple of awesome people on here who took their time to share their experience with you. So I'm just going to go through each person. I made sure to add a lot of different backgrounds and pathways of how we got to the grad program here at URI. So we have a really big variety. So I'm just going to go through each person, and if you just want to say a little bit about you, how you got here, and like where you went to undergrad, your major, all that. I'm going to start with Sarah. Do you want to go first?
Yes. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah. I'm in my first year, second semester of the grad program. I went to UVM for undergrad, and I was a communication sciences and disorders major with minors in psychology and special education. And then after I graduated, graduated a semester early, and I spent 6 months as an SLPA, working with K through 12 in a district, so wide variety. But yeah, I've always spent my summers in Rhode Island, but I'm originally from Connecticut, but that's how I found myself here at URI.
Fun fact, Sarah was also on her URISSLHA, or not URISSLHA, her NISLA e-board. She was the secretary, so
Yeah.
awesome to have you here. Next we'll go to Megan.
Hi guys, I'm Megan. I guess you would say I took a more untraditional route to get to where I am right now. I started off at Eastern Connecticut State University, so a small state school in Connecticut, and I graduated with my bachelor's in psychology. I thought I wanted to work as like an HR rep. And then I had like this crisis where I was like, this is not what I want to do. I um I already applied to grad schools for like HR stuff. I got accepted to grad schools for HR stuff. And then January came and I was like, I don't want to do this. And actually, I on TikTok, a speech language pathologist like popped up on my TikTok and I was like, this seems so much fun. I think I would love doing this. So I decided I wanted to go into speech. I had to take leveling courses because I didn't have a lot of the prereqs that you need to get into grad school, like phonetics. Um, you guys know which ones I'm talking about. Um, and so I took leveling courses at Sacred Heart University online. And during that time, I just worked as a nanny whose my boss, the mom to the boy I was nannying, she was actually a speech language pathologist, so I got to shadow her, which was super convenient. And then I applied and I ended up at URI, and I'm so happy I ended up here.
Yay, thank you. Thank goodness for TikTok. I mean, really, another reason to love it. Next up, Allie.
Hey everyone, my name is Allie. I recognize some names on the Zoom, so I'm a graduate assistant. So you've probably seen me in your classes. If not, hi. So I did my undergrad here at URI. I graduated last spring, 2024. I was a CMD undergrad, and I had minors in HDF and Psych. And I'm in my first year in the grad program, second semester, like Sarah and Megan and Gia. I'm trying to think, what else? I'm from New Jersey, but I did my undergrad here. I didn't do the 5 year. I just wanted to do my 4 years and do an extra two. I was also on the URISSLHA board back in the day. So that was fun. But yeah, that's pretty much there is about me.
Yay. And last but very not least, Julia.
Hello, I'm Julia. I'm in my final semester of the graduate program. I hadn't heard Megan's story before, but we have some similarities. I went to undergrad at Brown University and I majored in urban studies and American studies, and I was convinced I was going to be a social worker. And I had a similar crisis, and I said, I don't want to do this. And I happened to interview some speech language pathologists along with people with different career paths, and I fell in love with it. I thought it would be a really good path for me. So I did my prerequisites at the University of Rhode Island for my first year. I know I had phonetics with some of you, so I see some familiar faces. And I really appreciate that I had that opportunity because I felt like it gave me more time to build relationships with the professors at URI. So at first, I feel like I went in feeling like it was a disadvantage. And at this point, I feel like I needed that extra time, and it really helped me build stronger connections with my peers and my professors. There we go.
Thanks. Also, I forgot to mention that I can also answer questions on this panel. So, um, first year, second semester, and I guess I can answer all the questions, but also I'm here to answer any 5 year questions as well. I know we usually have a couple. So, yeah, I'm going to hand it over to Sophie. She's going to read us the questions, our lovely VP. And if anyone has any questions, they could drop it in the chat. If you guys want to turn your cameras on so you can see your faces, no pressure, I know. But yeah, Sophie, take it away.
Thanks, Gia. I'm going to start with some of the questions that you guys sent in our Google form and on the Instagram. So whichever grad student wants to start first, you guys can jump in whenever. So the first question that we have is, can you recommend any graduate schools and programs for speech pathology?
So, URI. I I don't know much about other programs. I applied to four when I was applying. I applied to UVM, URI, UConn, and Central Connecticut. And all four seemed like great options, but I decided on URI. So I think when you're looking, just think about what makes most sense for you, location, opportunities, and pretty much anywhere you go, you're with that has ties to ASHA, you'll get a you'll learn and it'll be great.
Kind of like going off what Sarah said. I applied to like I think 6 or 7 grad schools. URI was my top. I wanted to stay. You all know how great it is. But yeah, just whatever works for you. I know a lot of them hold open houses, like virtual ones, even in-person ones if you're on break or whatever, to go look at them and even sometimes like tour their clinic, talk to some of the professors, talk to the chair of the department, things like that. I know some schools do like different things. Some have like required research, some don't. So if that's something that interests you, you could definitely look into that. All their websites pretty much have um, like their requirements for like prerequisites, like Megan was saying before, and that kind of stuff. I know some of them even have like specialty, like specialize in certain areas. So if that interests you, you could definitely look those up on their websites as well.
Thank you. The next question that we got was how early did you start your application process?
So I believe I applications were due, like if I remember correctly, January, right, guys? January, yeah. I want to say I started mine around September, and I started just like writing my like personal letters, making sure I had everything because through the like program that you guys have to apply through, it has to be verified, and some schools have different requirements. Um, like UConn, everything has to be verified before the deadline, but there are other schools where you can submit your stuff after the deadline, but or have your stuff submitted, but it can be verified at a later date. So I always think earlier is better. Um, yeah.
I remember I asked for letters of recommendation from professors very early because my program in particular was small, so we only had a limited number of professors. I remember I emailed, our school started in August, so I emailed like that first week of school. Um, and then pretty much the same timeline as Megan. Definitely early because they verify your transcripts and it can be a pain sometimes. You might have to go in and fix stuff, so definitely start early.
Yeah, I think I started like I made that account, like the Sidcast account, like that summer going into senior year, just so I had the account and could kind of like peruse and kind of see what it was all about. Um, Same like they said, I asked for letters of rec in like September, and sometimes the people that you ask letters of rec for, they require stuff from you, like a list of schools or even like sometimes an essay or things like that. So just depends who you ask, and starting early could never hurt. Just to, I know senior year is like a big time for everyone, like fall, senior year. But if you just carve out some time during your week just to work on personal statements, even if it's like an hour or two per week, that definitely helps chip away at the load.
The next question that we have is what is the course load like in grad school in comparison to undergrad?
I think it's definitely interesting because all of our classes are uh, not 3 hours, 2 hours and 45 minutes, so basically 3 hours. And that's for every one of our classes. So I know undergrad was not like that. It was either 50 minutes or 2 hours. But yeah, all of our classes are 3 hours. And then on top of that, we have clinical, which makes it interesting. So you got to do work outside of class schedule as well. So that's something to consider. It seems scary and it was like a little bit of a hard transition, but eventually everyone gets the flow of it. And don't stress, you guys will all too.
Like kind of like what Gia was saying, as like someone who also did their undergrad here. Um, I'd say our like curriculum in undergrad is very exam heavy with not as many assignments depending on the class. You do have like a good amount of assignments in grad school, like application based ones. Like for example, like case studies, presentations, things like that. But they really do help with like transferring what you learned in undergrad to like a practical sense and using it in your clinic, like Gia said.
Yeah, I've definitely found that a lot of the assignments we do obviously have purpose and are there to help us with the actual application. There's less like short-term like busy work assignments, but everything is super functional and important.
And can you guys give us any tips for grad school interviews?
I didn't have any interviews. I don't know if anyone did.
I had one. Um, It was mine was long. Mine was like 45 minutes long, but I know my roommate was going into audiology at the time and her interviews could be as short, I mean, as long as an hour, short as like 15, 20 minutes. I definitely recommend like looking on like TikTok and Reddit. They have like really good sample like SLP interview grad questions. And just like practicing those with your roommates or just even typing up like little bullet points about those questions just so you kind of have something prepared. I'm not really sure how many still do interviews, but um, it's always good to be prepared. It definitely helped in preparation for mine. It kind of lessens that on the spot feeling that you may experience.
I also did not have any interviews, but Allie bringing up Reddit and TikTok, kind of circling back to one of the previous questions, join like Facebook groups. I know Facebook's like millennials and stuff, but they are actually so helpful. I joined a few Facebook groups for either like new grads or like SLPs to be or whatever. And there are so many people in those groups who are so helpful, where you can find information about grad schools, CFs. People will just like talk about their experiences. It's so great. And honestly, through those Facebook groups, I like messaged a few of those people when I was still deciding about what school to go to. And I just asked them like how they like their program, how is it structured, that kind of thing. And it was so helpful.
I obviously didn't have an interview, but um, I also forgot to mention that Sophie can also answer any questions because she made her own 5-year track if any of you guys are interested in that. So she's graduating a year early because she's just so cool. And she also just had a couple interviews. So if you do want to answer, Sophie, please feel free.
Yeah, I can jump on about the interviews because I've had two this week.
Yes.
One of mine was just an hour long, and then the other one was 3 hours long, which is, I think, pretty long. And I've noticed a lot of them are group interviews. So, both of them that I had and others that are coming up are all group interviews. So, there's been like 5 people in each of them, and the main thing that I would say, like going into it, is like looking at the program itself that you're interviewing at and make sure you know all the details of the program, what you like about it. And that's pretty much it. But for the next question, going off of what Megan was just talking about, we want to know what some factors to consider when deciding where to go for grad school.
I think a big one that you should all consider is just location and cost. Um, I'm from Connecticut, but I decided to go to URI. I could have gone to UConn or Southern because I would get in-state tuition, but I was really attracted to URI's curriculum and the way that their classes were structured. Um, but definitely consider cost and location because you have to find housing. Um, if I went to an in-state school, I definitely would have tried to stay home. It would have saved me some money. Um, but also, as I said, the curriculum, find out if there are classes that maybe some schools offer that others don't, like electives and stuff. Um, we have an AAC course, which is really awesome if you're interested in that. Um, I don't know if other schools have that or not, but I found that class very beneficial. It can apply to so many situations. Also, we have a medical speech language pathology class. I'm interested in more of the medical side, and this class has made it so much more clear on like where I'd like to go in the medical setting.
I think it's also really important to look at clinical opportunities. URI has a campus on clinic, I mean, a clinic on campus, which is super helpful because some schools don't have that. And this is just super convenient. It fits in easily with your school day, and it's just a nice way to ease in. And we got to start out with one client our first semester, which is also really nice that they ease you in because there are some schools where you don't get any clinical hours until your second semester, some schools where you just get thrown in with like 2 or 3 clients your first semester. So I really appreciated the way that URI kind of slowly eases you in. And I think that's a newer development, which has really worked out.
Going off what Sarah mentioned as well, some schools you have to find your own externships, where at URI they find them for you. And our clinical director, Karen, will work with you based on your interest. Something Gia mentioned, you have clinic at the same time as classes. Some programs, they do it separately. You do all your classes, and then you'll do your child placement, and then you'll do all your adult classes and do your adult placement. So that could be a factor. And Ali mentioned that she's a GA. You might want to consider those types of funding opportunities and really look at the fine print because you might be offered a GA ship, but it might be for 1 year instead of both years. Just looking at all the details when you're applying to these schools and, like Megan said, kind of ranking what's important to you.
Yes, I'm also a GA, and that was a huge reason for why I chose to come here because it's been a huge help. And balancing like TAing two classes is normally how they have you do it. So balancing TAing two classes on top of the course load and everything has been pretty manageable. I don't yeah, I don't know if Ali agrees, but it's been super manageable. So it's just been an awesome help if that's something that you want to look into for yourself anywhere. The other schools I know have that as well.
The next question that we got is, what is something that you wish you knew before going to grad school?
That's a hard one. I don't know. I'm trying to think. Maybe like I know my mind is probably on the transition portion because I know that's what we want to gear this towards, but definitely the shock of the transition, material wise, I think I had a hard time adjusting just because I think Ali mentioned it before, at least for our undergrad, it's very exam heavy. Like I need to memorize this exactly. But I guess it's actually a good thing that everything is now application based. So just switching my mindset was a little challenging. But once I figured that out, everything just like fell into place. And now there's a flow.
I was really nervous about like clinic going into grad school. I'm like, I'm just a girl. I can't treat real people. But it really like URI having like a pre-prac class really kind of teaches you everything about like writing lesson plans. Like, and you don't start clinic right away. You don't start for a couple weeks and that kind of stuff. So that really kind of eased that anxiety. I was really nervous about it, but URI did a really nice job of easing us in like Sarah said. So I wish I wasn't worried about that, but I get a little nervous every semester when you meet like a new client. I feel like that's kind of natural, but by like the second week it's gone. So just not worrying so much about like the clinical piece of it.
Something going off that, yes, definitely the clinical piece. I still get nervous. I like you said, every time I meet someone new, even before new sessions or before a session every week. But when you get in there, you kind of get in your groove and you're like, I kind of do know what I'm doing, and like I can trust myself to do this. But another thing I wish I knew was to not worry so much about the collaborative piece. Everyone like everyone in our program is super friendly and we are all there to help each other. It's not competitive. It's just you're there to support each other. You do a lot of work together. There's a lot of group projects, assignments. You'll oft sometimes be sharing a client with another student clinician. So there's just so much collaboration. Everyone's just there to support each other. And for the most part, everyone's like not for the most part, everyone is friendly. But everyone, I know she's laughing. I just mean everyone's friendly and everyone's ready to be collaborative and be helpful.
Okay, the next question we had, I know you guys touched on it a little bit, but we wanted to know what the transition has been like from undergrad to graduate school, and if you have like any tips relating to that.
So I guess because I did my leveling courses online, that was kind of a transition going back to being in person. I know I don't learn well online, so I was a little nervous to start taking classes in person again. Um, but The transition went smoothly, smoother than I thought it would, which is good. But I think the biggest thing is just planning. Plan your time well. Time management is so important in grad school, especially when you start throwing clinic into it on top of your coursework. I have like three different planners and I use them all in a different way, just to keep my days organized. But as long as you stay on top of it and like plan out your weeks accordingly, it's manageable.
Okay, so if anyone wants to jump in with some questions, we got some more, but they're more like application based. So if anyone has some more questions about like the transition going into grad school, feel free to like type in the chat or unmute and ask. Otherwise, I'll continue with some of the application based questions that we got.
I'll ask a question. Oh wait, did I glitch? Can you hear me? Oh yeah, there I am. When did you start planning? Like feel like different people will tell you like, oh, make a list of prospective schools or oh, do this. But like I know Allie talked about like opening the account before senior year, but like how far do you guys recommend going in advance?
I remember I really started finalizing my list that summer going in before senior year. You can't open up a SIDCAS account and to apply until your senior year. They open the applications at a certain time and um I didn't finalize things until the summer before. And that's also if I went to visit, that's when I would visit schools.
A question that we got about applying was how many schools did you apply to?
I did like six or seven, URI being one of them. I kind of went all over. I did all the ones in New Jersey because there was only five or so, two in Pennsylvania, and then URI. Um, it does get a little bit expensive. That's the thing about applying. But the good thing is, if you do go to those virtual or in person open houses, they sometimes will give you a waiver for like the application fee, which is really nice. But you also do have to pay on SIDCAS. It's like you kind of figure it out once you get there. Um, but it really depends on the person, like where you're located, how far you want to go, kind of like Meg was saying. Um, but yeah, just whatever really works for you and like what you're looking for.
Going off that, I was not willing to move to another state and I wanted in-state tuition, so I only applied to one school. I applied to the University of Rhode Island.
Yeah, I only applied to four. UVM, Central Connecticut, URI, and UConn. Um, and that was just because I didn't, those were the places like I was already in Vermont, so I was like, I'll either stay here or I'll go home to Connecticut or I'll go to Rhode Island. I was totally location for me. And money as well. Like Ali was saying, applications, the cost can really add up because most of the time you have to pay on SIDCAS, and then the schools will have a separate application on their website. So you have to, that's just something to think about if that matters to you. But
Next, we had somebody asks about the tests that are required or recommended for grad school. So, I'm guessing, did any of you guys take the GRE or
I
recommend that
did.
for?
I took it summer going into senior year. Um, I took it at like I was lucky I had a testing center like right by my house. I forget the test was like somewhere between like 100 and $200. And I'm assuming we're talking about the GRE, but I know some schools, a lot of schools actually don't really require it anymore. One of my schools did, and the other one strongly recommended it, so I just submitted it anyway because I had already taken it. Um, but I know a lot of schools kind of are doing away with that, so that's always good to look into on their website. You can always like email if you're like a junior going into senior year, and you want to take the test in the summer, and it doesn't say on the website, you can always like email the department and ask if that's still required or not. I know a lot of them like explicitly will say, I know URI's explicitly says whether it does or not. So it's couldn't hurt to ask.
Does URI require it? Oh, okay.
Okay, the next question that we got was about how applying works when you haven't completed all of your credits or your prerequisites yet. So, for example, like applying during your senior year, is that something that's a challenge?
There's there's a way to, when you submit it, you can submit as in progress, right? Am I remembering correctly? And then you just have to go in and update it with your completed transcript later, right? It's been a while.
The next question that we got, what are some of the classes that you've taken so far at URI that have allowed you to gain hands-on experience in the field?
I would say our pre-practicum class is a great example. Um, you start off like just learning different like treatment techniques and stuff, and just kind of the basics that you would need to know before you start clinic. And then about halfway through the semester, you have a grad student with you, and you basically take over one of their clients in the clinic. So they can sit in the room with you or they can observe from the observation room, but you are actually working hands-on with the client. You are making the lesson plans, you're writing the progress report at the end of the semester. But it sounds terrifying. I was terrified. I think we all were. But it made me feel so much better about going into this field and just more confident when I am now having to work with clients by myself. I think the pre-prac class is something great that URI has. I'm not sure if many other schools do or not, but I think our pre-prac class is definitely one of the best things to get hand-on experience.
Also, we did kind of going off that, we did, and I'm not sure how many people know Dr. Harwood. She doesn't really teach many undergrad classes, but she teaches a lot of grad classes at URI. In our language disorders in I forget which, oh no, speech sound disorders, we learned how to administer and score the GIFTA, which is like the Goldman-Bristow test of articulation. And it's a test that you kind of give like pretty frequently, depending like what population you work with, but specifically like in children. Um, and then it really helps once you get to like your diagnostic clinic, being able to administer that. I know in another class she teaches you how to administer and grade the tills. And there's a couple other courses that do the same. So that's definitely really good practice. I know I think test of measurement, they do like the PLS or something. I haven't taken that one yet, but it's definitely really good practice to be able to do it when it doesn't really count. Like you get a grade for it and you do a write up, but just good practice in general.
And I think all of the courses that we take are going to help us. Like right now, Gia, Megan, Allie, and I are all in adult clinic with aphasia clients. And we had taken the aphasia course first semester. So now we're applying a lot of that stuff that we learned with our clients now. And I know Julia has so much knowledge that she's applied at this point, but everything you learn, you're going to eventually apply, whether it's like the next day or the next semester. Yeah, it's all connected.
Okay, those are all the questions that we had sent in. So if anyone that's joined on wants to unmute and ask a question or type it in the chat, feel free to do that.
I have a question. I was curious what class or like any type of moment during your undergrad time that really has helped you within like grad school.
Do you mean like extracurriculars or like
Yeah, I don't know, anything that you feel like has helped like translate into grad school.
I'm taking acquired cognitive disorders now, and it feels like neuroanatomy all over again. So all of that will come back. I feel like all of phonetics is relevant for sure, and all of the anatomy that Dr. Milner teaches is has been coming back in motor speech disorders and in voice disorders. So I would say just that foundational knowledge certainly comes back.
It definitely comes back, so pay attention and have good notes. I remember I TA'd for anatomy last semester, anatomy with Dr. M and then neuro with Dr. Kim, and it was a really good refresher, like Julia said. So those are definitely like foundational skills. But then it's cool to kind of have learned the content in your undergrad, but then apply it in grad school. So that's the cool part of it.
Yeah, a lot of what we've been learning has been literally building off of what we learned in undergrad. Like you learn about speech sounds and then you take speech sound disorders. So then it's super cool building on what we already knew.
Okay, we've gotten a few questions in the chat. So the first one is there any recommendations that you guys have of things to do in undergrad to help your chances of getting into grad school?
Um,
This is definitely a good start being in URISSLHA.
yes, definitely. I was gonna say that. I was gonna say being involved in in the NISLA, which is awesome. I just know having a bunch of like, or just being well-rounded and having showing that you have interest outside of just your courses. I know I did research with a professor. I TA'd a few courses. I was the secretary of NISLA, um, peer mentoring, just showing that, like working with people, volunteering, anything to just show your interests. And even stuff not connected to CSD or CMD is great too. They like to see that.
Also, just to add on really quick, in a few of my interviews recently, they've asked about my job experiences. So even if there's not like an extracurricular you're interested in, you can always find a job that you're interested and include those jobs onto your applications, and it's definitely helpful. The next question that we got, is there any advice you could give on writing cover letters or other supplemental essays or resumes and things like that for grad applications?
I will tell you what. Go to the Career Center in Roosevelt Hall. They also do it virtually. I was there pretty frequently my senior year writing cover letters and resumes, like editing resumes. They're really good at doing that. I think Doug or Ashley does like the ones for us, or maybe they're not there anymore. Um, and they're definitely really helpful. And then even with personal statements, I was in the writing center like weekly going over personal statements. They don't really help with like content things, but it's more so like the mechanics. Like I was very much like over the word count on a lot of my personal statements, so they kind of help me cut things out, become like a little bit more concise with my writing, combining sentences and things like that. So definitely just using the stuff that's available to you on campus for free are definitely really, really helpful.
I remember
No. Oh, okay. I was just gonna
No.
jump on that because I do want to talk about the Career Center because I did that too, and it was Doug, but I don't think he's there anymore, and it was Ashley, but I think she got promoted, so I don't know who it is now. But really great. I printed out my resume. He circled things, and then we like helped rearrange. Also, in the Career Center, you could practice interviews. So I know that was a good option. I never had to do it, but very good thing to look into. Okay, so there you go.
Sorry. Um, I remember I just made I went through and looked at, because the schools will have different questions. Most of them all had different questions for me. I just went through and I made lists of things, just um, rough drafts. And then once I made a rough draft, I had a professor that I worked for her in the lab, and we were just very close. So I actually asked her, and she was super awesome. She read over some of my stuff for me, looked over my resume. So it doesn't even have to be a professor, just having somebody else with fresh eyes read it over for you is super helpful. Um, I know a lot of them asked about like interpersonal communication, problem solving skills, your experiences, why you want to be an SLP, why that school. So just like compiling answers to things like that specifically for each school was super helpful.
Okay, the next question is about letters of recommendation. How early should you ask for them, and when should you have them by?
I asked for mine a month before the deadline. So certainly go earlier, but I did a month.
Yeah, I think I did like maybe September. Um, I think that was the time I asked, whether it's in person or via email. Like I said, I know one of the people in our department who I had asked required like a list of schools I was going to, as well as like a little thing about myself, almost like a brag sheet, they used to call it. Um, so they have like things to write about you, with, but they will get them done. They know what they have to do. Um, if you have something that's like coming closer for some reason, you have like a sooner deadline, you can always just shoot them an email and remind them, but they're really good with getting them in.
Yeah, I remember I asked in late August, early September, and most of mine were in by Thanksgiving. So,
Yeah, I think in the application portal, you can put when you send out your letter of recommendations, you can put like when they're due. So I always just did like a week or two before just to ensure that it was in beforehand. Um, but I think I asked in September or October, and I only had to email one of my undergrad professors because he just kind of forgot about it, but not many people aren't like that. He's just kind of spacey. But yeah.
Yeah, I asked in September, and I know for undergrad, there's a very few select professors that you can ask. So just getting that in early, giving them time. I know Milner probably has 100 students to get recommendations for, which leads to another piece of advice. If you do have the capacity to go in person and talk to them, I always say person over email. It's more personable, something else for them to write in your recommendation letter and helps you stand out. So definitely do that.
another thing is I had all of my people that I had write for me were CSD professors, but I know a lot of my friends had professors from other programs or people they worked for, so it doesn't have to. I I think three is normally the normal number for letters of rec. Not all three have to be CSD professors. They could be anybody who could talk about. I know at least one should probably be, but others can be anyone who can talk about you as a person, or if you don't have CSD professors, don't worry about it. You're gonna like anyone who can talk about you as a person in a positive way. It's great.
Yeah, kind of going off of that because I wasn't a CSD major, I didn't have any professors like that to vouch for me and like knowing the content of like speech language pathology. But I had two of my professors from undergrad, and then I had my boss who I've been working for him for like 4 years. So he was able to like comment on my work ethic and my time management and stuff. So, like Sarah said, they all don't have to be from your program. They just have to be people who know you well enough to advocate for you.
Yeah, and that's another thing to also look at. I know one of my schools had asked for two from professors and one from someone that I used to work for, or like a past employer. They give like other examples, like someone else who could just speak on your character. But that's something also just to look out for on whether it's their website or their SIGCAST page.
Going off of that, similar to what we were talking about, should you ask professors from your junior year or senior year or any professor that you feel close to?
I would say any that you have just formed a relationship with, because um, I know, I'm sure you've heard it from your professors, maybe not, but at my school, they would be like, come to my office hours, like get to know me. Like they don't want people to just ask them for a letter of recommendation if they've like only said like two words to them. So definitely make sure it's people and professors that you have like established a relationship with and they know enough about you to comment on who you are and your character.
That's like another thing as well. I know Dr. M has like talked about it before. Like even just participating in class, they can get to know you that way. Like Meg said, office hours is a great way, but even just stopping after class to like ask a question or talk, and especially by participating in class, they'll know who you are, which is good.
Okay, another question that we got in the chat was, what is the most important factor when applying to grad school to help you get in? Or even just like something that you think would make you stand out.
I would just say maybe like recognizing your skills and like what skill set you bring to each like thing that you participate in, whether it's on campus or off campus. Like for example, I was a tour guide on campus, so I really like honed in on like my personal statements, talking about like interpersonal communication, like professional language, and like all that kind of stuff. So just kind of knowing where your strengths lie and how to present those in your application through like your personal statements, I would say.
Going off of that, personal statements, especially if your school doesn't do an interview, personal statements are going to be how the school like gets to know your personality almost. Because yes, of course they care about your grades, but they also want to make sure that you like possess the qualities that an SLP like should have. Just being personable, like professional, all these things. And you can really like display that in your personal statements, but also keeping your personality like intact too.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with both of them. Showing your strengths and what you could add to the program or to the profession, super important. Just showing your knowledge, but also like your kindness and compassion, like very important for this field.
Ali mentioned this earlier about the interview process, but if there's a cover letter, that's a great opportunity to show that you've researched the program. And not only that, but to show, okay, this is what I like about the program, and this is how I'm going to contribute. And also, this is what I'm going to get out of it. So you're showing the program what assets you bring, those strengths, and that you've researched the program and that you're going to take the most advantage of everything they have to offer. I think that can really set you apart.
I remember when I went to one of the grad panels when I was an undergrad, something someone said to me was look at the mission statement for the school that you're applying to and use some of those words or like build some of those words into your essay and how they connect to you, because that's just showing how you directly connect to what the school's all about.
Yeah, and even going off that, if you do have an interview for grad school, research the school and have questions prepared to ask them. I know some schools like have like very niche labs and stuff like that. You can look those up and just have a question or two prepared to kind of get more information about their school, and it also like shows your interest as well.
Does anybody else have any questions before we wrap up? Those are the ones that we had in the chat.
I have another question. I think it was Sarah. You said you worked as an SLPA. I was just curious if you could talk a little bit more about that and how you got started and what was it all like?
Yeah, so I that was like the best experience ever. I got lucky because in Vermont, there you don't have to have the official certification process because they can take you on as kind of like a para or an assistant to the SLP. Not like it's just a different situation, but I learned so much. I just had graduated with my bachelor's in CSD. I applied. I had recommendations from professors in the program. I use some of the things I learned when I had my child in clinic first semester. It was just super great learning from I learned from two different SLPs, and working with kindergarten through 12th grade also helped me understand what age group I might want to work with better, because you do totally different things with the younger kids than the older kids. Um, Definitely scary, but it also helped me with starting grad school, working with clients, already having some experience. And obviously, I wasn't on my own yet. I was working under SLPs, but that was a super helpful way for me to ease in. I know there may be different restrictions in Rhode Island. I don't know how it works for SLPing here, but I just lucked out in Vermont that that worked out for me, and just the timing was perfect. Definitely great experience. I know a lot of my friends took a gap year and worked as an SLPA this whole year just to kind of gain some more experience before grad school, and they've had amazing experiences. But yeah, I can talk about it forever. I have so many fun stories. I learned so many cool things. But definitely, it was just like perfect time and place. It just worked out perfectly, and I most valuable experiences ever. Yeah.
Another question that we got in the chat is how important is your GPA in the admission process?
I think it's just important to remember that they look at you like through like a holistic view, like not just obviously at your GPA, they have to, but also like the things you're involved in and your personal statement and whatever other things they require, whether it's like a video submission or things like that. I know one of my schools actually also was like if you had a grade on your transcript that was like lower than you typically would have achieved, you have like an opportunity to explain that. So whether you had like something going on in your life or like whatever, it was just not a great semester for you, you have an opportunity to kind of just explain. But yeah, it's that holistic view as well. So that's good.
Anybody have any more questions? If not, maybe you guys could just give us one piece of advice, just kind of to take with us as we're moving towards grad school or thinking about applying. Maybe just like one last thing.
I think in the applying process, and even once you get into grad school, I think it's easy to feel like an imposter or like, I'm not ready for the client, I'm not ready for this class, why am I here? And I just say that because I think everyone experiences it at some point or at multiple points. So just mentally reminding yourself that you can do this, you belong here, and you know, the application process is very stressful. You only need one school to work out. You just need one to click. And also, if for whatever reason it doesn't happen the first time around, there's other options like SLPA or pursuing a different job or interest and coming back to it.
Okay, I think that might be all the questions that we got. So thank you for everybody for coming, and especially thank you to our grad